As your narrator, I want to introduce myself. I'm one of Ohio's past citizens, magically brought back from the past, to speak to you and to take you on a journey on the Underground Railroad, to learn history, to learn our history. My name is Solomon P. Chase, and I was an abolitionist, lawyer, and politician in the 1800s. I'm the former governor of Ohio, presidential candidate, and former Secretary of the Treasury. As I look back on my career, I think it's fair to say that I have many accomplishments to reflect on with pride, but none of these were more important than my representation of those brave souls trying to find freedom from enslavement on southern plantations and farms. You are now at the entryway to the Underground Railroad Room at the Kelton House Museum. Look inside. What do you see? How do you feel? We do not know for certain, but it's very possible that runaway slaves were hidden here, in this very room. What do you think it would be like to be a runaway in this room? The Underground Railroad was not a real train line with tracks or locomotives. Instead, it was a system or network of people who helped fugitive slaves escape from the South to the North. There were guides along the way that were called the conductors. There were paths or rail lines, and hiding places called depots or stations. Information about the Underground Railroad was communicated from one person to another through stories and even in songs. Travel was usually on foot in the forests along the waterways and trails. This was done in secret during the night, where slaves would use the stars in the sky to point them north to freedom. Ohio played a critical role in the Underground Railroad, and many believe as many as 40,000 slaves escaped through Ohio. Over 700 depots or safe houses were in our state for runaways that were successful in crossing the Ohio River. Ohio was a free state, which meant that it was illegal for residents to own slaves. However, protecting runaways was extremely dangerous because there were ruthless bounty hunters and vigilantes who preyed upon all African Americans. The Ohio Black Laws were passed in 1804 that attempted to put restraints on all African Americans in our state and stop any new immigration. Each African American was required to pay a fee and register with the county clerk. No African Americans were allowed to attend the public schools or participate in court cases involving white people. These laws prohibited protecting or helping runaway slaves. The National Fugitive Act of 1850 directed law officials to hunt, recapture, and extradite runaway slaves. Fines and prison terms were to be imposed on anyone helping fugitives. As a result of the fugitive slave law, runaway slaves had to escape to places like the Caribbean, Canada, Mexico, or Europe. Slavery was prominent in the United States. From the Kelton House, the Kelton family played a role in rescuing fugitive slaves.
As we've mentioned, the Kelton family were abolitionists. They were in favor of abolishing slavery. There were many Americans who felt that way, and many of them took part in a loose conglomeration of individuals who worked in their own individual ways to abolish slavery. The term Underground Railroad evolved because writers of the period attempted to dramatize this movement, and it made it sound as if it was an organized national movement. Quite the contrary, the Underground Railroad was a loose coalition of people who helped individual fugitive slaves escape slavery. Most of them would house someone for a day, possibly two, give them food, give them shelter, and then either direct them or take them to the next stop along the way toward freedom. Usually, these conductors, as they were called, only knew the conductor before them and after them. As opposed to some national organization, it was a fragmented group of individuals who each did one little kind event to help fugitives on their way to freedom. At the Kelton House, we know about Martha, who escaped slavery. We don't know how many other individuals would have been sheltered here. Our presumption is that many would have. If you would do it once, certainly you would do it again. The stories that come down through the family are that fugitive slaves hid in the cistern. A cistern is a large water collection tank that would have been in the ground for collecting rainwater for use in washing clothes. If the cistern were empty, it would be surely large enough to hide fugitive slaves, and that is the oral history that has come down through the family. We, of course, do not know where our cistern is and can't demonstrate it to you. And so we have created an area that we call the Underground Railroad Learning Station. It is a faux hiding place. It is a replica of the many kinds of basements and barns and attics and bedrooms that would have housed fugitive slaves on their path to freedom.